Hello folks, Miss Roll here with our work calculations notes. So our target for this video is that I can calculate work. So you should have already watched and done the notes for the conceptual video and understood that piece. Now we're going to talk about calculating work. So how do you calculate work? Well, our equation for work is just force times distance. Force times distance. Okay, and that kind of makes sense with our definition, right? Applying a force over a distance to make an object move that same direction as the force. We also write it, because we as scientists like to abbreviate everything, as W equals F times D, right? Work is force times distance. Our unit for work is called joules, Joules. It's named after an old dead guy, but we abbreviate our unit of joules with the letter J. And force, as you should know, is in newtons, capital N, again, named after another old dead guy. And then distance we measure in meters with the letter M, lowercase this time. And the more force that there is, the more work is being done, right? The harder you push, the more work is being done. But also the more distance, the further that that object moves, the more work is being done, since those two things are being multiplied. All right, so we're going to get to some examples here. All right, so here are our examples. First of all, let's remember what the equation is. So I'm going to write it over here. Work is force times distance. Force times distance. All right, so for our first one here, example 1, you and 2 friends are on a road trip. Your car breaks down. 2 of you get out and each apply a force of 450 newtons to push the car 220 meters to the nearest mechanic. How much work did one person do? Okay, so I have my work equals force. So if I look at our units here, I have newtons and I have meters. Well, I know that force is measured in newtons. So my force number is 450 times my distance, which is 220. Okay, so 450 times 220 is going to give me my work. All I need to do, type that in my calculator or do it in your head. If you can, you will always have access to a calculator. And this tells me that we did 99,000 joules of work. We got to remember that unit, joules. Very important to have our unit. And that's our first example. Let's look at number 2. You and 3 friends are on a road trip. Your car breaks down. 3 of you get out to each apply a force of 300 newtons to push the car 220 meters to the nearest mechanic. How much work did each person do? Well, again, we know work equals force times distance. My force number has newtons, so I know that's going to be 300 times my distance, which is 220. Again, I know that because it's meters. And again, all I got to do now that I know my numbers in my equation is type it into that calculator or do it in your brain. And this we get 66,000 joules of work. Again, remember, we always have to make sure that unit is there, either given to you in the question answer spot, or you got to write it in for your answer. So we got our 2 examples done. Example 3, what required more work? Examples 1 or 2, and why? Well, if we look at our 2 numbers here, right, our 2 answers, we know that example 1 required more work. So I'm going to write that example 1. Example 1 used more work. And if I think about this, in example 1, it said 2 friends are pushing. And here it said 3 friends are pushing. So there were fewer people, so I had to apply a bigger force. Okay, so example 1 used more work because we used more force. And same process for any other work calculations that you are doing. That is it for our notes video. Make sure that you have your answers filled out, including these examples, and look for what your next assignment is. Have a fabulous day.